Are you listening?
I always pitch our franchise as NBA Jam meets Street Fighter.
Boom shakalaka!
But with athletes from every single sport and every league, at least in the North American stick and ball space. It really is a console class experience that'll be launching first on Apple Arcade and then later going to Steam and console and possibly some other places as well.
Ultimate Rivals The Court is the latest game from developer BitFry Games and the second installment in the Ultimate Rivals series. Following the success of Ultimate Rivals The Rink, BitFry has created yet another game that combines some of the best athletes in the world to answer the what-if question found in the heart of every sports fan. On today's show, we sit down with developer BitFry Games to discuss Ultimate Rivals The Court, their partnership with Apple Arcade, along with how Ultimate Rivals almost became a toy-to-life video game. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation with Ultimate Rivals The Court. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this because I DM'd you a couple days ago telling you, but you have a very exciting game on your hands. For someone who may not be familiar with Ultimate Rivals, do you mind explaining it to them?
I always pitch our franchise as NBA Jam meets Street Fighter. But with athletes from every single sport and every league, at least in the North American stick and ball space. And it is the second entry in a multi-sport crossover arcade action video game franchise called Ultimate Rivals. This is our NBA licensed basketball game. The first game was an NHL licensed game called The Rink, which came out in December in 2019. And I'm really psyched for this one. This is about 14 months of our studio's work, which is a very condensed development time frame for games of this caliber. And it really is a console class experience that'll be launching first on Apple Arcade and then later going to Steam and console and possibly some other places as well.
I've got to admit, you have me hooked with your game because I grew up playing games like Kobe Bryant Courtside, NBA Jam, even Ken Griffey Home Run Derby. So playing the court really brings me back to those days. Is that what inspired you guys when you started developing the Ultimate Rivals series?
Yeah, in some respects, I think the thread of the games that you're talking about are very consistent with the ones that I grew up playing. I grew up in the 80s. I'm 44. So for me, it was games like Blades of Steel and RBI Baseball and Baseball Simulator 1000 and Tecmo Bowl. And then later on, it moved into the 16-bit era with Jam and a lot of the Midway titles and even Nintendo's games when it came to Mario Sports. Those were really the epicenter of the DNA that we were trying to capture some essence from, but we're not looking to just recreate them from a retro, kind of vantage point. It's really distilling the things we loved about those games and updating them for the future. And I think there's a huge inspiration from fighting games for us. We spend more time talking about Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and games of that ilk, and how they influence our animation and the timing and the controls in what you see in Ultimate Rivals is almost equal to what we draw from sports.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because one of my favorite things about it is kind of just the casual pick up and play style of the court. But there's also a feature where I guess, I don't know what you guys are describing them, but I would describe it as like an ultimate where you power up a certain bar, and then if you're a football player, you have your own ultimate. If you're, I should rephrase that, if you're an American football player, you get your own ultimate. Do you mind expanding upon that for the actual people watching at home?
I think we really were looking for an explosive gameplay and the ability to swing a game in a totally different direction than it's moving. And think of special moves in fighting games. I think some of this has been explored a little bit in sports, but we wanted the juxtaposition of each sport bringing into another sport. In this case, you mentioned football, which has what we call the shock and awe ultimate, which lays down 3 field goals onto the basketball court, which actually throws back your enemy basketball team and then allows you to take jump shots from those different points, which give you bonuses for your score. And you build up meter at the same time throughout the game, which is very similar to what you do in a fighting game. And some of this grew from playing early versions of our builds and finishing 4-minute matches, which is probably the right length of the match, and then seeing a score like 28-18. And I just thought, there's something really wrong about the level of, impact and kinetic energy in our games and these low scores, and how do we get the score to reflect the these incredible intense gameplay. And that's how we drew a lot on the Ultimates and really made the Ultimates be a key feature. And you can see that in the Rink, the original hockey game, where, the hockey player pulled a Stanley Cup out of the ice and went around freezing people to create a power play. So we're always about, I think, exceeding people's expectations, showing them things that, maybe they saw glimpses of in other games in the past, but taking that to a whole new level where there's no mistaking that it's an Ultimate Rivals game. We're drawing on some great games like NBA Jam and NBA Street 2 and, many other titles and other different sports, but we really want the signature of our games to be unmistakably unique at the end of the day. And I think with the court, we're about to, accomplish that, hopefully.
I'm curious, having played the game so much, what's your go-to lineup of players?
Well, I have to be careful that I don't tip my hand to those who are still learning the ins and outs. But I'll say that Yao Ming and Wayne Gretzky, have some unique impact on the game, and those are legends, so you have to unlock them with a little extra effort. But those two are huge. I'm a Yankees fan. So Stanton is there. Aaron Judge is not yet in the game. We might be saving him for a baseball game. Who knows? But those would be two that I would say are really fun to play with. Look, Steph Curry he's ice on the court. I mean, you can shoot. You'd be surprised at what the WNBA players can do in our game. We gave them incredible powers in terms of their shooting. Their shooting, I believe, is the best in the game, better than the NBA players. So, there's a lot to explore. I wasn't sure, because games these days they're not just a monolithic thing that you ship anymore. Now your expectation is like, how many minutes a day are people playing it and how many. So, but 150 something athletes in the game, and with some effort to unlock them, there's a lot to discover. And funny enough, I'm listening to people stream the beta, and I heard the other day someone who streams regularly and really has learned the game, an outsider, he said, I really wouldn't recommend using all NBA players on your team in this game. And I thought, when have you ever heard that, said about a basketball video game? I think that's a really cool observation. Obviously, you want to have NBA players in your team, and having one of them is certainly a key thing to do. But you could play without any of them, which I think is an amazing, concept that you can't do in any other game.
Ultimate Rivals The Court primarily features a 3v3 basketball style mode. Outside of just an exhibition match, what else can players look forward to with the court?
There will be, and there is in this beta 2 already in the final version, a gauntlet mode, which is a progression of more increasingly difficult challenges that gets harder and harder on difficulty and unlocks characters for you. There's a quick play mode, which is like exhibition there, which you mentioned, and then there is daily and weekly challenges, which allow you to earn points in the game or coins in the game that allow you to unlock athletes. And then I have to say the mode that I'm the most excited about is the training mode, which I drew a lot of inspiration from fighting games for. And you think about the training mode in Street Fighter, where you just go in there, you can set up a bot and practice sparring against your opponent for hours. And that's essentially what we've done in our game, allowing people to go in and play and practice with different configurations against different athletes, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 1-on-1, just by yourself, 3 on nobody, practicing your alley-oops. There's a whole unique background stage in there. There's incredible art in there. There's 13 original music tracks in there that you can't hear when playing regular matches. So for me, that mode, I think, could become a centerpiece of the franchise, because my vision is to do remixes of that mode where we build different types of gameplay modes and constraints on top of it and spin them out as different choices where you can play them in addition to the modes I just mentioned.
Now, one of the things I read online, and I was hoping that you could maybe shed some light on it, way back when you guys were originally coming up with the idea of Ultimate Rivals, it was going to be a toy-to-life product. Is there any truth behind that?
Yeah, it was, in fact, originally a toys-to-life video game platform, where the vision was the games you see today would really not be that much different, other than you would be buying some of the athletes through physical toys at retail, which would unlock certain gameplay mechanisms. And it was a very long, painful process to build that vision out. And we had a toy partner that we got very close to a deal with, and they suddenly bailed. and caused us to have to pivot back to what our original vision was, which was always software. I mean, the company wasn't founded on a Toys to Life vision. It was founded on the same vision that I think we're delivering on now, which is that the sports video game market had become overly saturated with simulation style games and had left fans with really not enough content when it came to arcade. And ultimately, the toys served as a vehicle at one point or another to explain crossover in terms of why it made sense, and we ended up pivoting back to software and keeping all of that intact. And I think at the end of the day, I love toys. I grew up in the 80s, but that is a very challenging business to be in. Games is already a challenging business. I think it would have been an amazing product, even though the Toys to Life market had really kind of collapsed before we could ever get it out the door.
I got sucked into Skylanders way too hard back in the day just because it kind of hit that old Spyro and Crash Bandicoot market before those games kind of got remastered. So when I heard Toys to Life, I was like, oh, dude, that would have been, I would have immediately bought them. But to your point, I think that there is a much larger market in that arcade game, because while NBA 2K is great and Madden is great, I think when I look back at my childhood, for example, Kobe Bryant courtside, the thing that I remember is couch co-op with my friends, doing three-point shootouts. It was the more arcade-style parts of that game, not the simulation side that drew me in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And listen, at the end of the day, I mean, we're a hyper-competitive studio, but we have a lot of respect for, the people who make those games at EA and Take-Two, and even some friends over there. So, what they have accomplished, it's pretty impressive technical feat. I think we see ourselves much more as a commercial art outfit that is spinning some, yarn from the past into the future and doing something really novel with gameplay patterns that are proven and familiar, but going to bring us in a different direction. And, we're always looking to distill the boring aspects. I mean, there's even things in the old arcade games that today I think, feel like tropes and cliches that we want to get out of. And, we argue about, like, if we made a baseball game, would we even show a foul ball animation, like, over and over again? Like, does that, if you go back and look at film trailers from the 80s or 90s and look at how slow they are, even early 2000s. And I think there's just sort of an elevation of people's ability to process information and the speed at which they want to consume their experience. And we've taken that into the future. Like, the speed of our game is intense. And I think you're onto something. I think people will probably play the game and find ways to make new games within it. And to me, that is like the ultimate compliment, and hopefully we'll start to see that happening, once we're launched.
One of the big drawing factors about Ultimate Rivals, of course, is what you hit on with the crossover between the NBA, NFL, WNBA, soccer, NHL. You just recently announced WWE. What is it like in those conversations? I mean, are organizations as big as the NFL open to companies like yourself making games, or can you shed any light on that process?
I can say that I spent 6 years building the licensing matrix. It feels like, I think it was 6, I don't know, 5, 6 years maybe. A huge amount of time spinning plates and landing planes on moving ships and at different it was just, it was a very challenging thing to do, to get that many organizations that are independent from each other to agree to participate in a platform or a franchise that's so novel and with a studio that no one had ever heard of before. So I'd say that the benefit we had this time around was that we were doing it at a moment in time where the people in the licensing divisions of these licensors, I'm not naming any names, they're kind of, the people coming into these jobs are actually from our generation, right? So, had we tried to do it 5 years prior, or, in the 2000 to 2010 timeframe, I don't think it would have gotten off the ground. So, there's just a different frame of mind in the market. You see Minecraft, you see customization, you see, what Disney did with Infinity was, I think, a great mashup example of how people want to play with their favorite IP in the way that they can imagine and not the way that they're told to play with it. So there's just a change in thinking. I mean, you can't even download a song today that doesn't have artist, X featuring artist Y. Everything is collaborative. sneakers to music to everything. So I think we're at a better point in time where people, in the licensing divisions are more open to it. And once you get a little critical mass, then there's a bit of FOMO, and then, who wants to be the one that's really left out of it? So it is, at the end of the day, an absolute miracle that we pulled it off, and I don't want to make light of it. And I think I've almost become inured to it, because at times I forget what we've accomplished, and I still meet people for the first time, and I've told the story many times. They still want to talk about the licenses, so I'm used to that.
Now, when it comes to the character modeling, I mean, are you guys doing actual scans of the athletes, or you guys have somebody in your team who's sculpting them, or how's that going down?
Everything's bespoke. Everything's done by hand. Look, like I said, what they do with the technology and the Sims is incredible and necessary. For us, I would say that it's a lot harder to make an aesthetic, stylized realism video game or comic or any piece of art than it is to make something hyper realistic. Hyper realistic is very easy, because you can copy photo references, and people have a very innate understanding of what looks good and what looks proper. That's where you get the concept of, the uncanny valley, and when things are not quite real enough. When it comes to stylized realism, it's a lot harder, because somebody has to come up with an aesthetic that looks good, that's memorable, that's unique, that stands out, and is beautiful. And that is a very hard thing to do. We have the best art director in the world, Branislav Perkovic, and the best lead character designer, Goran Bukvik. And the two of them are just like incredible. Between them and what I have in my head, we come up with a lot of what you see visually. And then our technical art director, Alexander Brooks, who's like a genius, and really the whole team supports it. I don't mean to single out any one person, but our art direction team works really hard on creating this look and drawing everything by hand and then modeling it into 3D to get the aesthetic that you see right now, which I think is unique. We didn't want to just look like Fortnite, which everybody's doing. I think we have a very hard kind of edge look to us. We took a lot of inspiration from Frank Miller's Batman comics, in terms of shapes and dimensions and the way light falls on hard edges. So we're different. We look different. We stand out. I think we're still beautiful, but at the same time, we still look aspirational and cool. And I'm really, really happy with the way it's come out in the court.
It's stunning. I'm playing it on the iPad Pro, and just with some of the neon lights and the color palettes and everything like that, it definitely feels like it pops off the screen at times. I hope you don't think I'm blowing smoke, but like, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite games right now. So I've got a kudos to your entire team over there.
Appreciate hearing that. It's great to hear it. I mean, we always had confidence in it, but you never know, until you put it into people's hands, what they really think. And the feedback from the beta so far has been really, sensational.
Well, you mentioned the beta. Currently, Ultimate Rivals: The Court is in beta. What's the roadmap for the next couple months? Do you guys have an official launch date that you're looking at?
We don't have an official one that we can say publicly. We have one in our head. And the goal is to get the game out before the end of the NBA Finals. I hope that's where we end up. Maybe theoretically, it might come a couple of days after that. We'll see. But our betas have been dropping weekly on Friday. We've had beta 2 last Friday. This Friday, we hope to do beta 3. Beta 4 will be next Friday, which will have multiplayer on and should have all the features turned on. And then we might have one more build after that, and we'll be out before you know it.
Ultimate Rivals: The Rink did launch on Apple Arcade, as will The Court. As a developer today, I've got to imagine it's challenging. There's so many platforms out there between PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, Stadia, PC, Apple. What is the process like on your end for determining where to launch the game? Did Apple approach you guys, or did you pick Apple, or how did that go down?
Well, we were fortunate enough to have an opportunity to work with them and bring it to Apple Arcade, which is fantastic. It's been an awesome platform to begin a franchise on. And we're always going to launch first on that platform, and now it's the choice of, well, where do we go next? We hear people all the time say, can you come to Switch? Can you come to PlayStation? Can you come to Xbox? When is it going to be on Steam? And it's really just going to be a matter of looking at the market, seeing what kind of opportunities there are with publishers, prioritizing the demand, because we're very quality over quantity. We don't just want to throw something out there on everything, have it blow up in our face. We really want every platform experience to be exceptional. And I think we're likely to see PC Steam happen before we see console for that reason. And I also think discoverability is going to be something we want to really make sure it's solved for before we go to console. And so I'm a little hesitant to just throw things into a marketplace that's digital, and not have a good partnership strategy over how it's going to get seen or how it's going to get marketed. And that's something that every single platform has its own unique challenges with. And we're going to be looking at how to solve next.
If somebody wants to find out more about Ultimate Rivals, where should they head?
They should head over to our Discord server, which is where you'll find a thriving community of almost 3,000 people. It's grown 20% plus daily in the last 10 to 12 days. And there you'll find access to the beta. And of course, you should check out my Twitter account, because all the breaking news on the franchise will always start on my Twitter account, and then flow from there.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Ben. And like I said, I wish you and the entire team at BitFry all the luck in the world with this game. If you're interested in checking out Ultimate Rivals The Court, please, we've included links to the Discord along with Ben's Twitter account in the description of this video. Until next time, my name is Bryant. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, thanks again for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content just like it, which who wouldn't, hit the subscribe button right there. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Maybe even consider becoming a Nerf Report best friend, just like the people listed down below did. In fact, don't you want to see your name there? I know I do.